So I say on election eve, in honesty, I believe I'm speaking for many people when I say that these 2018 midterm elections are, in part, a referendum. A referendum on identity politics in the United States of America. Dial it forward, dial it back. I think we have now a pretty decent cost-benefit analysis. So I do say quite often that social justice is a modern religion, one that I am agnostic to. A faith-based mechanism, largely based in guilt, but seeking moral virtue, equity, equality, and a higher truth, even for the devoutly secular, through altruistic otherism, of course. So identity politics, social justice, intersectionality, and some call it cultural Marxism. It's just these collectivist ideologies that put people into groups and judge them that way. Look at them for their group characteristics, their immutable characteristics, and they judge them that way. They don't look at the individual. They don't look at the character of a person, the flaws, the actions, the words. They look at the skin tone and the sex, the gender, the religion, the occupation, whatever it might be, their class. And they sort people this way. They determine who is the oppressor and who is the oppressed, and then they go ahead and try to balance that out using all of these arbitrary groups. Not looking at the actual privilege of a given individual, but saying, well, this group, on average, has more privilege, and thus we should look at that individual through the lens of that group. Of course, that is done with benevolent reasoning, but of course, oftentimes it is enacted through malevolent means, okay, such as racism, sexism, and like I say, otherism. Of course, I call it altruistic otherism because I see that there is an element of trying to bring moral virtue into the frame for that person who may feel guilty and project their guilt, especially if they're a social justice white. Normally I call them social justice disciples, and of course the prophets of the modern religion as well, that go around proselytizing, and they use their power and their money to bring this ideology, this faith, and bring it into the public square and make it larger than life. It's in your movies. It's in your TV. It's in advertisements. It's everywhere. And many people, in my mind, they don't realize that it is only a religion, a modern religion. They believe, the disciples, they do, that it's the truth, that this is absolutely something that they should be fighting for. And I say, look, I don't have a problem with that. If your intentions are good, yeah, you might have a paving problem. You might be going somewhere you don't want to go. But your intentions are good. And I think that's a good place to start. Of course, your methods, I might disagree with. And we can work together to find ways that are better to better the world. But in the meantime, I think that identity politics have rubbed a lot of America the wrong way. We've seen, since 2014 especially, we have seen quite a few cases where, even feminism, third wave, fourth wave feminism. I'm going to lose some fans for this, but I think the first wave was great, and it's been all downhill from there. It's got nothing to do with women, and it's got a lot to do with the attitude of those that are spreading this ideology. Okay, it's back to the oppressor-oppressed dynamic. Women are oppressed by men, thus they must take action, and it must be a malevolent action. We must grab it. We must forget about property rights, forget about individual liberty, forget about negative liberty. Hell, forget about positive liberty. And just take from the men and give to the women. And identity politics, in the case of a candidate like Bernie Sanders, is take from the rich and give to the poor. And leave me a comment below if you didn't like how I pointed down for the poor. But in terms of income, they are down there. And I think I'm down there with them. Which is why, partially, I supported Bernie Sanders in 2015 and 2016 until I realized that he's just a big cuck that can't do math. And he is ancient. I think my grandmother was pointing out, and she's 86, but she was saying that the old bat or something like that. He said she had some phrase that had old in it. I'm like, who are you, Grandma? Who are you to call old? And she's like, well, it's Bernie Sanders.